Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. It's 10 a.m. We're here for the Hunt County Commissioners Court regular session. This meeting will be conducted by telephone or video conference in order to advance the public health of social distancing to slow the spread of coronavirus COVID-19. Due to the COVID-19 crisis, the governor's orders regarding social distancing and special rules issued by the state regarding open meetings, there will be no public access to the location described above. Later in the meeting, we'll be having public testimony. I'd ask the public to go to our website, Hunt County, and view the meeting online. And if you've got any questions or you'd like to address the court, you can email us with a link that's provided on our webpage, and we can either read a statement or you can give us a callback number, and we'll be happy to call you at the appropriate time. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order, and if we'll all stand, Commissioner Martin, will you lead us in prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
Shall we bow? Our most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this world that we live in. We ask you to please comfort those that have lost lives in reference to the family members and friends within the last half a year. We thank you for everything that you have given us. We ask you to give us knowledge, wisdom. We ask us to be patient with each other as we take care of the people's business. In Christ's name we ask these things. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I
Pledge
pledge
allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, we'll have a roll call. Commissioner Evans, Straight, Martin, and Harrison present. I'm Judge Stovall presiding over the meeting. Commissioners, you have the minutes in front of you from the August 25th regular section. Are there any comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from August 25th.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion second, any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Normally we do our public testimony here. Again, I want to announce to the public, you can go to our webpage, huntcounty.net, find the appropriate tab there to send us an email and put your phone number in. We'll call you back where you can make a statement, or you can send a question or comment by email, and it'll be read to the court. This being no old business, we'll move to new business. Consent calendar. Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 1, we're going to move till after executive session. Action item number 2, FY 2021 statewide automated victim notification services maintenance grant by and between OAG and the first contract renewal of FY 2021 participating entity services agreement for the statewide automated victim notification by and between APRIS Inc. and Hunt County. Any questions? Not, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action number 3, approval of the elected official salaries for FY 2021. Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 4, resolution adopting the Hunt County Bridge Replacement Program. Any questions, concerns? Entertain a motion for approval, action item number 4.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 5, the discussion of NCT COG Regional Public Works Program cost share. Commissioners, you have that in your packet. I got that earlier in the year, and I think it kind of got dropped with all the COVID going on. COG had requested that we participate in their Public Works program. If you reviewed it, you'll see there'll be some programs there to educate us on the maintenance of right-of-ways and different public works project. It's 40, whatever it was, $4,700 a year. I think we should contribute that out of this year's budget as well as putting it in next year's budget so that we can participate with COG in their public works program. Entertain a motion for approval of 5.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We okay, Gabe? Okay, no problem. Action item number 6, additional funding to the Pilot Grove watershed for a 5% construction cost of soil conservation project. I think we've discussed this a few times. We're gonna authorize the payment of that money in this year's budget. Got any questions?
Yes, sir. Now, this was the monies that we put aside for that earlier, correct? And it'll be taken out of that, I believe it was 50,000.
It's 60,000, and
60,
we've not
okay.
we've talked about it, we never formally did it. That's what we're
that's
formally
what I
doing,
was wondering.
authorizing the expenditure of it. In next meeting, we'll have a budget amendment or maybe a line item transfer out of 2,800. But we'll move the money next meeting if we got approval today. Entertain a motion for 6.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 7, the resolution approving and adopting amendments to the Lake Tawakoni Planning and Zoning Commission ordinance providing new RV park regulations defining certain terms and providing a severability clause and effective date. Commissioners, you have that in front of you. The P&Z is wishing to add an ordinance and allowing these travel trailer parks. Is that correct, Philip?
Yes, sir. If I may discuss this just a little bit, I have had a discussion with the chairman, also with John Adele, and I'm looking at these general regulations as put out, and in reference to 3109, that'll be, I guess it's the first page, Exhibit A. It'll be under Exhibit A. It'll be 3109 RV parks under Section 1. Agricultural districts. And then it says RV parks may be allowed upon approval of septic use permit in a agricultural district, an MH1, a MH2, mobile home districts, or C1, C2. I would like to strike the agriculture districts out, not include that one. Everything else looks good with the exception of under 3109, it'll be number 8. And I have, would like, it says RV parks located in or partially in a floodplain shall be subject to applicable development requirements within the floodplain. We have two things, and I'm glad to see Daniel and them here, because in reference to the new specifications, in reference to our new plating subdivision rules and regulations, the only thing that I found out was in Section 7, and it related to sewer systems or, water type situations. There's nothing in our new regulations that would affect this regulation having to do with Tawakoni Planning Zoning Board, because we don't have anything in there. And I did look
There's
at,
state and federal guidelines for developing in a floodplain.
yes.
So that's what you're talking about. You have to meet the federal guidelines. They're the strictest. So
Okay.
you have to meet the federal guidelines. That's what it's talking about.
Okay, and the same thing basically in our old rules and regulations as far as plating. I would like to have a discussion in reference to this. Over the years, in fact, I was involved here recently at one point. I don't mind a RV park being in partially in a flood zone. On the other hand, I do have a problem with them putting spaces that are in a flood zone. In other words, you can partially have it and reflects this, that are adjacent to partially in a flood zone, but the RV parks or the spaces themselves should not be in a flood zone.
So Philip, I think that's probably the federal guidelines. You can't put a structure of any type in a floodplain. Now, you can put a parking lot in it, and you can put recreational areas in it. You'll see a lot of soccer fields and baseball fields in floodplains, but
Okay,
you won't
but-
see the structures.
Well, these here, with this also comes the idea with tiny homes, in which that's talked about in 1/600. And it also says that these spaces, whether it be RVs, can be rented out, and be there, but they'd have to have the wheels on it also. But it's not going in and out. Basically, they're setting them that they will allow, people to live there. And so that's where I'm having a problem, having those type of houses in a flood zone, because over the last several years, how many times have we seen these RV parks wiped out because of the 100 flood? And so that's what my problem is.
Well, I don't think we need to, Daniel can answer, but I think the federal law supersedes anything we're gonna do, and that's not permissible under federal law.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, but in here, it's talking about that. So do we need to come up with, say, nothing within a flood zone?
No, that's understood, because the federal law definitely supersedes. I mean, federal law is number one, then state, and then local. And so to the extent that we have anything that is opposed to federal or state law, but in this case, especially federal law, because that's where most of the regulations are, federal law controls whether we reference it or not.
Okay, tell me this, with the Sabine River Authority, basically, would they have to also go with this federal law?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
And that's kind of a complicated area, because the Sabine River Authority is effectively on the level of a state agency, and so they are in between us and state regulations. So federal comes first, then state administrative agencies, and then our local rules. And so the short answer is yes, they have to follow it.
Okay,
That's what
with-
you're asking.
Okay, would this get it under number 8, RV parks located or partially in flood zone shall be subject to Apple development requirements within the floodplain? Will that take care of that?
Oh, it definitely will, yes.
Good enough.
But
Then-
even if it didn't say that, it would still apply.
Okay,
Daniel Harrison, did you have a comment on it, or?
please.
Yes, I just agree with what everyone's saying here, but also working with John Odell and Quinlan, we'll be taking a look at the uses related to the lake zoning. And so I'm sure RVs and RV parks are something that come up a lot. So I'm sure we'll be having even a more in-depth discussion, moving on to when we get to the zoning and working with the zoning commission.
Okay, also within those rules and regulations, you have noticed the tiny homes with wheels are also involved in that? Good.
Yeah.
Then the only thing that I would strike basically is 3109 RV, do away with agriculture districts. And which, if they do have that, all they have to do is be qualified to go before that board and ask for MH1, MH2, like we normally have done.
So we'll be taking a fresh look at all those and making sure that we're addressing.
Good enough, thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Entertain a motion for the approval of action item number 7.
Make a motion that we approve that with the exception of 3109-RV parks, that in number 1, agriculture district be eliminated.
Second. Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Action item number 8, the review of final revisions on subdivision regulations and engineering standards manual. Daniel? While we're taking a moment again, I'm going to ask the public to go to our website at huntcounty.net. If you wish to make any comments to the court, you can either send us an email via the link on our webpage, or you can leave a number where we can call you and you could publicly address the Commissioner's Court if you choose.
You might want to say, if people can't find that link, it's a web address or email address is publiccomments@huntcounty.net.
If you can't find that on our webpage, the link is publiccomments@huntcounty.net.
That's right.
Okay.
I'll put it up on the screen so that you can see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Daniel.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having us here today. And what we're going to present to you is where we are in the subdivision regulations and the engineering standards manual. That's the first part of the project that we're tackling. My name's Daniel Harrison. I'm with Grayson Nichols. We are an engineering, planning, and architecture firm, and so we work with counties and cities all across the state and sort of the south central U.S. Working on their development codes. With me today is David Jones, also working on the project. So the two people responsible most for developing your document are here with you today, and we'll be asking you some questions and letting you know, like I said, sort of some of the key things. So when we're looking at subdivision regulations, there's two parts that we have on the screen. There's really two documents. There's your subdivision regulations document that tells us how to plat, how we do a preliminary plat, final plat, all that good stuff. The other document's the engineering standards manual, and that's really why we're here today, to bring you up to date on some of those and ask you some questions here. If you look at the engineering standards manual, we have 8 different sections in there. But the important thing just to know out of that document, that's where we have our road standards. That's where we have our drainage standards. So those type of things that the engineers are going to be looking at, they're going to flip to this manual to say, okay, developers building this road, I'm going to flip to this engineering standards manual to see if it matches what the county standards are. So this is the important element as far as if you're an engineer goes. And so of course it will have the cross sections, and I think we made a couple of adjustments on that, making sure that that's concrete or asphalt type of section. So what we did was after our last meeting on the 5th of last month, we incorporated the changes and everything we talked about, and we sent the engineering standards manual to your 2 engineering firms that you use to look at plats and those type of things, to get their feedback on the engineering standards manual, because that's really good input that we get from the people using your documents. So we got roughly 50 comments back from them. And we sort of classified them up here, and you can see, and I'm going to show you a spreadsheet that sort of visualizes the comments that we got. 21 we consider green comments. Those are easily addressed by, just adding language that the engineers request. They want, could you clarify this, do this? So that's very easy for us to do. So the largest one, 21, were green comments. Blue comments were more just sort of need some internal discussion with the engineer. There's always, if you're reading someone's notes, sometimes there's a question mark or something like that we have to just, call them back and get a little bit more, hey, what were you thinking on this? So they're not really anything that's to be concerned about, but they just need a little bit more clarification. And then we have we have 12 items here that are just more policy, more broad-based things that we need your input on. And so we'd like to discuss that with you, sort of the right-of-way width, culvert size, sidewalk, lot-to-lot drainage standards. And so what we can do is we have a nice little spreadsheet, and these are all the engineers' comments, and then like I said, these are the color coding that we use to say, sort of go through their comments. We have a reply to them, so we know what our response to them was. So there's all this detail in here, but I'm just showing you this to you as sort of some background information so you can see what chapter, what section a comment was. And like I said, we're pulling out the yellow ones to talk about right now. Here are just some more ones. For example, just an example of a blue comment is this one here, looking at, studying some downstream impact, wanting to pick a 10-year storm event. So those are things that we work on with them.
And so there's just 3 pages of that, or 3 slides, or 4 actually. So the ones that we wanted to bring to you, the 5 that we sort of wanted to present and discuss with you today, the 5 things that we need your input on, or these are the ones that we wanted. We wanted to, is the court okay with the HDPE? This is basically the plastic, it's not concrete, as an alternative for our concretes pipe in our culverts. So on an unpaved road, is it okay to use basically plastic pipe rather than a concrete pipe? We'll talk a little bit about lot-to-lot drainage. That's important. Also, the size of your lot when that's occurring is important. So we'll touch on that here in a second. I got a slide for each one of these here in a second. Then we'll talk about culvert size, just to make sure that you're okay with that. And then also right-of-way size for our rural local section in the bar ditch. And then we want to talk to you about requiring sidewalks on our urban local sections and requiring 50 feet of right-of-way on that. So if we get into some of these here, the first one is that concrete pipe, or is it okay if we do some type of plastic or some type of polymer pipe on there for unpaved roads, for our drainage ditches and things like that? Is that okay? As Freese and Nichols, when our engineers take a look at that, they are okay with it not being concrete, but that is something that we can talk about and make sure that you guys are okay with that. Is there any sort of jumping into this one, and Dave, feel free to add anything else if I missed any of the any of our comments on there. But I just wanted to turn that over to you to see if you had any questions, whether concrete pipe, if we're talking about a culvert or something like that, or some type of other piping alternative could be allowed.
We've strayed away from, the PVC plastic type stuff or the rubber, whatever put out by Wilson and all them. For this reason, we have a lot of fires, and basically I have seen films in the past. We've always had to do with metal because I've seen the results of fire taking place and burning all the plastic out, and you have nothing but dirt in a round circle. So I would be very much against having any type of a plastic or flammable type situation. I believe that the metal at this point of time has worked all this time, even with the fires, and that it would probably last longer. Otherwise, if we did have a huge fire, we would have very much of a problem.
Okay.
Since this is especially rural area.
I would disagree. I don't have a problem with the metal or the plastic corrugated. And there's several other counties that use the plastic corrugated. Most construction companies use plastic corrugated.
It's not PVC, Philip. This is a whole different
It's not
product.
PVC. It's plastic corrugated. It'll still burn, but I mean, how many fires have you had run across and burn one out?
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say that it would be a problem, especially in a construction site.
Is there a capacity of weight over those compared to, say, the metal or whatever? Are they comparable?
They're very comparable. Yeah,
That'd be my only concern.
and most construction companies use them.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of cities are using them now. It's getting to be pretty normal. What's the
Actually-
cost differential in that? Is that,
I could, I'd have to look into that. I could also take a look into and ask them about the fire situation, like how long, has this improved over time? Is this like, maybe 20 years ago, it was more of an issue, but now it's formulated differently? But that's something we can ask the engineers.
Ability of it would be the question in reference to it. Because, like I said, in the past, I've seen a lot of films where it showed, these rubber type corrugated type deals. Now, I don't know what they're made out of now, but I've seen even huge culverts burned out.
Okay. Yeah, because one of the things we could take a look at, and like I said, get with the engineers, is taking a look at, is there a class or a level to make sure that we're at a certain standard, that we're not getting the more affordable type that you'd get, but it'd be a more durable type, is something that we can definitely check in on.
different grade, we'd absolutely want to know that and have it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so if the grade and the production quality is comparable to the metal or the concrete pipe, would that be really the key thing to address the concern?
My main concern as far as it burning,
Okay.
that's my main concern now as far as the plastic versus the metal. Yeah, eventually metal rust. But,
Actually, the way they're made.
I don't know whether we need to
they're
say,
smooth inside
think
like
that it
they
has to
flow
be
on water.
this or that.
Okay.
In fact, we don't allow, at this point of time, we don't allow any of this PVC type or whatever it is, but however it's made, we don't allow it and have never allowed it for those reasons.
Okay.
What's the,
A couple of things. One, though, we use a galvanized steel pipe to address the rust issues. And then if we did go with the HDPE, that it only be on an unpaved road, so that if we do have to get in and replace it because of fire, then we're not tearing up a paved road to get in there. And on paved roads, we'd still use the metal or the concrete.
And I would say, like you said, that on the corrugated metal, some soil types, we have a lot of rust issues where they rust out very quickly anyway, so the corrugated would actually work better there as far as that, to me, than the metal pipe, so.
I guess my only question is I was trying to see how the thickness of it, because
Well,
a discussion of the 15 or 18-inch minimum culvert, and I know that some of the commissioners are letting 12-inch in the driveway culverts when they don't have enough depth in their ditches. And then if you get the thickness, does that create a problem?
It won't. But actually, the flow is more on the HDPE because they're smooth inside. So,
But I was thinking about the height of it.
right, but I mean, you don't add enough,
Not
because
enough
your flow
differential.
increases inside, you wouldn't have to, 15 would carry as much, probably, I don't know, without looking at the calculation, but probably as much as 18 corrugated metal, so.
Are you asking about the weight bearing capacity?
No, I
thickness
mean, we
as far
got
as
some
the height.
shallow ditches on some of these driveways, and that's why they've allowed some 12-inch culverts in the past. And I haven't seen much of that pipe except on the truck, so I didn't know what the thickness of it was, if that was gonna add to the height and have a bigger hump in the driveway because of the thickness of the pipe.
Which that
Like a
also-
concrete pipe's a lot thicker than these metal 10-horn pipes that we use.
Which that also goes back to using the ditch clearing that they had using the Tech Dot formulas to do the ditch clean. I mean, you'll have enough ditch that you can put a 15 or 18
Yeah,
inch on.
if we can get the easement situation, like
Yeah.
we're talking about, taking some dedication where we can go back some distance either side of a driveway and clean out a ditch and get it where it works better, then we can get our depth
Yeah.
in some cases,
Yeah.
particularly on those dirt roads.
There's a lot of areas that we use 12-inch, especially right down from a hill. In fact, if we can add dirt to it to where it'll be a continuation of the hill, we'd like to do that. But I have 2 or 3 basically on property that I own that we have to have the 12-inch.
And do you think getting the extra right of way would improve that situation in that example?
You mean from the,
From the street, to see if we could get some extra right of way to either dig the ditch deeper to basically provide.
I wouldn't want it to go deeper in my front yard. Basically, these areas that I'm talking about are in front of houses on the hills or right down from a hill.
And parts of the county's extremely flat.
Yes.
We have some areas that's just hard to drain.
Yeah. So it seems like for number one, we're open to having the alternative in there to the concrete, just as long as it's fire resistant. And then we'll get back with you about a little bit what those standards look like.
What if we
think that-
what if we put in there and just allowed all of them, and then each commissioner could decide what they wanted to do?
Okay.
Would that solve it? I mean,
I agree.
Most of our culverts are not in a forestry area. Most of them are right in front of somebody's yard, so the chance of that grass catching fire and burning that culvert out is not too big. It's very likely it will
Hey.
never happen.
You've got a bigger chance of it rusting out than you do of it burning up.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, we'll provide then the alternative. We decide on the precinct level.
Yeah, I think that'd be the easiest solution, because everybody's got their own favorite deal. Just let them do what they,
Yeah.
want, you know.
Okay. Number 2 on the list was lot-to-lot drainage. That was one of the engineering comments about, how to address lot-to-lot drainage. And basically starting off, just sort of what the issue with lot-to-lot drainage is. Okay, so it's going to rain, there's going to be water on your property, and it's going to go somewhere. So it's either going to go to the ditch by the road, or it's going to drain maybe to your neighbor's property. This becomes more of an issue when our lots are more tightly packed together, more suburban, urban style development, and that's why you start to see more drainage improvements, because like I said, we either got to get the water to go to the street, or maybe if there's an alley, it goes to the alley, then it can go into a curb and gutter system or to some other type of drainage improvement. When we get to our larger lots that, let's just say they're 1 acre or larger, how drainage is handled, it's just more handled with the natural topography of the area. And so if your property is draining onto your neighbors, there's not necessarily as much of an issue with that. It still can be an issue, but the issue is less than when we have lots tightly together. So one way that we typically address this in our denser development, so stuff that's under 1 acre, we just allow lot-to-lot drainage to go from one lot to another before it either goes to a road or some other type of drainage improvement, whether that's a drainage easement, whether it's an alley, it could be an alley, it could be another street. But when we're talking about our denser developments, you really only get to drain to one other lot before it has to go. So you wouldn't have a situation where you have a lot here draining to another lot, and then the water from this first lot draining on to a third lot or a fourth lot. And that's when there's a lot of issues can arise out of that, because once again, we need to get that to a right-of-way or some other type of drainage improvement to do that. Once we get on to our larger acreages, whether it's a subdivision of 1 acre lots or 2 acre lots or 5 acre lots or something like that, whether tracking how the drainage goes from one lot to another, it could cross into a third lot, but you're dealing with such a great area that typically that's not much of a concern on there. So what we would tend to do is have our lot-to-lot drainage regulations apply to something that's 1 acre or less. And so what we would say under there is saying, yes, you can drain to your neighbor's lot, but then your lot, the water from your lot can't go on to the third neighbor's lot. But once we got over 1 acre in size, we wouldn't really have that requirement. We could set the size limit to be different things if we think we were experiencing, and you're hearing from the people in your precincts that hey, there's a lot of drainage issues coming from my neighbor's property, and there can also be very unique things with the land and something like that, especially when we get closer to our floodplains. But and that's one of the ways to address lot-to-lot drainage. So, but that's what we're thinking, is we're having that lot-to-lot drainage requirement for everyone under 1 acre of land.
Wow.
We'd like to get y'all's thoughts, seeing.
What did our engineers say?
They were they're in agreement with under the 1 acre.
Okay.
And correct, David? That was the question on the original.
The comment was essentially asking if we wanted to allow it or not. There wasn't a recommendation from the engineers. It was more like a question.
Question, okay.
So we're asking that question.
I have a problem with a few people. Sometimes they'll have 2 to 5 acre lot, excuse me, and they'll dig a pond in front of the house or whatever. Well, when it overflows and drains, it floods the neighbors out. Now, I mean, how we need to address that? I mean, because it's on private property, it's not the county. Or, I mean, here again, I may be asking a question we don't have to deal with. I mean, that becomes a civil matter, but.
Well, Randy, to add on to that, I mean, we've got, I don't remember the name of the subdivision, but I was in it when it rained an extremely amount. It's one of these areas in the county, excuse me, that extremely flat. Mm-hmm. And so when they built the roads in it, subdivision's probably been out there 15 years or more. the roads up high to get the ditches will drain. The existing road drainage structure of county roads and all doesn't handle the new water coming at it. And then the builders went out and just built the houses basically just right on natural ground level. And I mean, nearly every house in that subdivision had water up to its door. I mean, so I'm more concerned probably about the elevation of the house as I am drainage in some of those situations. I don't know if we could put a requirement in there that they have to be 6 inches above the center line of the road or something to give, so people don't just go out there and scrape off some grass and throw a slab down on it pretty much. And this was in a real sandy area, so, you know, I don't know how much site work they did to prepare that slab, but, I mean, we've got a bunch of houses in that subdivision. And when they did a second phase, they fixed it because they realized in the first phase they had houses nearly flooding. So the next phase, they built lots up, which is what they should have been doing anyway.
Yeah, when the subdivision is originally platted, and let's go to the 2 acre that you were talking about, we could have the requirement in there because when you're engineering the roads, you'd want to take a look at how are you handling the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, and 25, 50, and 100-year storm event. Because ideally we're containing those within the right-of-way in there. So that's one way. Now, when the plat comes through and we're looking at drainage, you know, they can submit a drainage plan as part of their plat, so you could see where all the water was flowing, because you'd have the contours, but you could have a drainage plan that has the arrows showing where people are showing where the water basically would go. And so you got to take a look at seeing, when we're looking at the preliminary plat or ultimately also on the final plat, where is all the water going? So we can try to handle that in a subdivision. One of the issues that we run across is, like, if the subdivision is doing this, you know, what's the unplatted property, you know, some of the effects that we have on there. But what we can do is say, you know, how are you managing the stormwater, you know, the 50-year or the 100-year flood, and making sure that you're not having any adverse impacts on there. But it goes back to, I think, sort of what you were saying a little bit too, when someone comes and builds that house and changes the lot after, because even in cities we have the issue of someone's gone and built the retaining, or we have a drainage system for a subdivision, but then someone says, well, I don't like my yard being sloped, I want to put a retaining wall in there. So these things sometimes creep up afterwards because we're not really, as counties or cities, monitoring what you're doing on your land after that. So some of these things can still be produced, these negative effects can be produced after that subdivision's built, with us having a little control over it.
Subdivision's been recently developed, and basically in between the houses, water was coming across, like the judge said, coming this way, and what they did is they individually took care of the lot drainage by coming with a lower area between the houses coming toward the front ditch. I might be getting ahead, but we're talking on page 6, you were actually talking about open creeks and other deals. Okay, if we were to have the lot-to-lot drainage aspect, in which this one developer did, and it's working, we would not become, as far as the right-of-way in reference to the ditch, we would not be assuming responsibility for clearing those ditches that are in between coming to the drainage. That's what I'm afraid of, because I was looking at this as says section 403 of subdivision regulations. You need to go along with what it is. You remember that?
I believe I know what you're getting to. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm concerned about that. I believe that it's lot to lot, and basically make sure that everything's higher than it should be.
Because I think there's 2 things in there that I'm pulling out of your comment. When we're talking about the lot to lot, and there's like a little swell in there, so we want the water to, rain's going to come off the roofs of the homes and go into the side yard, and we want that to go out to the, let's just say, the front and get into the street drainage ditch, and then going to go down the drainage ditch out to the creek or wherever it's going. So the issue is, what happens if someone doesn't maintain, keep that swell there? And they can fill it in, they can put a fence in there, they can do a lot of stuff with it. That's not the original intent. The land was designed this way, and when we're doing platting, we're trying to set up the subdivision in the correct ground zero form that they're doing. We can't go back afterwards because there's not, and even if we have an easement, as far as the county goes, we're not going in and enforcing the easements and things like that. So it's still their private property, so it's up to them to maintain their easements. So, but if there's some big, issue or lawsuit or something like that, so, and, two private parties are going at it, they could look at the land and see, oh, there's a drainage easement here, or you filled in the drainage ditch and changed all the direction of the flow. So that's the first part when we have a drainage ditch basically between two properties. The other thing I think you're getting at is we have in there, if there's like a creek or another open area or drainage area, which we're going to have dedicated on the plat, an easement that says, here's a drainage easement. Because we need to be able to, as a county, if there's a serious issue, to go over there and clean whatever, like maybe there's a whole bunch of logs in there that's going to flood a whole bunch of homes or something like that. We just need the right to be able to go in there and clean it. Not that we have to go in there and clean it up, or even if it's not like a road that if we go and fix it one time, then it's up to us to fix it forever. But basically what that drainage easement says is we have the right to county, if you're not maintaining it, to go in there and fix it. But that's more for our creeks and stuff like that. That's really going to create a big issue for a neighborhood. If it's the smaller thing between two homes, yeah, that's really going to be between two private property owners, because we as a county, like I said, we're trying to help the development community, and we're trying to help our future residents and current residents have a good neighborhood to start with. Yes, they can come in and build a retaining wall or change something on their property, but that's sort of up to them, and except for the lake zoning, we don't have zoning to really control that, and we're not really an enforcement thing like a city. So, but we've started that neighborhood off in the correct way where drainage is handled appropriately, and some people will change it on their land, but most people are just probably going to leave the property like it is, and so it will function well. And so that really gets most of our issues on there. So, so that's how I think we would address lot to lot. Things smaller than an acre, yes, you can only go to one before you go into a drainage improvement, a road or some other type of easement.
Part of our problem still on that's really gonna be enforcement of it. We don't give COs or anything, so we can require it on the plat, but once we approve the plat, we're pretty much out of it, aren't we, Daniel? Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we are out of it generally. We don't have a built-in enforcement mechanism. I assume that the draft will have something similar to our last ordinance that allows the county to enforce by criminal or civil enforcement. But it doesn't prevent us from doing it. We don't have any built-in enforcement mechanism like yanking COs like cities have.
Right, and we're not gonna go out and inspect it, so the only way we get involved is if there becomes a problem and neighbors are complaining, then if we went out and verified it, then we could force them to do something.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Our next one is about the engineers did ask about did we want either a 15 or an 18-inch minimum culvert size, because I think we had 15 in there, and I think they were requesting 18, or I may have that backwards. But talking to our 18 for the 100. Okay, so talking to our engineers, they're good with having an 18 inch culvert size for the 100-year storm. What do you gentlemen think about that size? 15 inch, 8, and I know we talked about having 12 in some situations. We could have some flexibility in there, but general thoughts?
I prefer 15 because there's a lot of areas in my precinct that the ground is flat and the roads are just about ground level. They're not built up, so I don't have a bar ditch. You do an 18 inch, that's going to be a pretty good hump to drive over in your driveway. 15 some of the time is too big, but we got a 15 inch minimum.
Okay.
In flood zones, in most cases that we have, we're using larger I would like to see it from 12 to whatever is recommended, at the location. I mean, what makes sense.
Okay.
We got areas that have to have 24. We have areas that need, even have 2 24s or whatever. So I don't think we should be limited in what we decide. That has to do 18 to accommodate 100-year storm. It's what's ever needed, don't put a number on it because we'd be doing unjust to the people.
So as far as establishing a base, we talked about 15 or we mentioned 12 on there. Do we want to say the base is either 12 or 15, but subject to some engineering?
I think we need to leave it at 15 because a 12-inch horn, a lot of places stops up so quick. That, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think we're good on leaving 15 the minimum.
Okay. So we'll leave it at 15, but then are y'all comfortable if we add in there that it needs to be increased if the engineer says?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you put on there 30-foot minimum length?
Yes.
I mean, we can do that
30
anyway,
foot.
but if
Yeah.
they read it, I want them to see that 30-foot minimum.
I think we can, and we'll make a note to bring it up to the engineers and see if they say anything on that. But I think that should be fine.
But the reason he wants that and we allow that is for the simple reason most people would like to put 24 or 20 or whatever they can put in there. We require them to have 30 so we don't have to go in later on and pull it up for the simple reason they run off the end of it. We have narrow roads, you need wider.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think we can do that. Okay. The next one we had in there was, would you be okay with having 60 feet of right-of-way on the rural section with a bar ditch? We didn't have any issue with this. I think there's a image here, yeah. And then we have our rural section here on the left, and that's basically showing 50 feet of right-of-way. And then working with the engineers, we're just taking a look at that, and they were wanting some extra wider right-of-way on there. So really going back too far. Having 60 foot going from 50 to 60 foot on our rural local section. And if you remember, just so anyone else listening, when we're talking about streets, we have arterials. I want you to think those are the bigger roads where people get all across the county. And then you have minor and major of those. And then, of course, you move on to a collector street, which is a smaller street, but street that is used to collect traffic from smaller streets. And then our smallest street is called a local street. So this is what most people would have outside their home in a neighborhood. And the local would serve 2 options. One would be a bar ditch, so you'd have a drainage ditch next to the road with no curb on there. And then the other option is you could have a curb and gutter, and then have a little bit less for the, since we don't need the bar ditch for the drainage because it will be addressed with curb and gutter, you can have a little bit smaller of a right-of-way, so 10 feet less in right-of-way. So, but with that, are y'all, any thoughts about maybe on our rural section going from 50 feet to 60 feet of right-of-way? Do we think that's too much right-of-way or keeping it?
I think we ought to
I guess
require
the
that.
question I have is, our plan is to start after the first of the year with our transportation plan. And once we get a transportation plan, will we still have local streets designated, or will they all become a different classification?
Mostly on your transportation plan, we'll set up your street types, which these could be adjusted because we're going to have these in a table. And so basically you would be plug and playing the numbers in there. So if your transportation plan changes these numbers, then the table can be updated accordingly very easily on there. But on your master plan for your roadway network, you're really looking at those arterial roads because those are going to be your big ones. You will have some collectors probably shown on there, but typically you don't see any of the local local streets really highlighted on there as much. Now, they may be shown, but you wouldn't be planning necessary new locals, because those are all going to be really built by subdividers and developers on there. So,
Yeah, but some of our current local streets could become any classification,
correct.
not just local.
Correct.
They won't be named as such. So I guess the terminology, if we have that as a local street, are we gonna have that terminology in that thoroughfare plan, or are we gonna have to change this to, after we do our thoroughfare plan?
I would say we just want to make sure that we align the street naming with each other, just so whether we're saying we're calling these arterials or principal streets and collectors and locals, because you'll probably always have a local mentioned in there. So I think it'll be fine, but like I said, I think it's an easy, quick update to do in our document if something on the thoroughfare plan changes.
Right now, we have 60 in reference to right-of-way, 60-foot right-of-way, in which it's accommodated in actuality even what some I would call a local street. Even though the concrete took, I believe it was 51 foot from outside of the curb, coming in. But I wouldn't know why, because we have a lot of, we've got a lot of rural areas in which I can see some of these to the west going to have smaller streets as such because they're going to be concrete. But I believe the right-of-way should possibly be looked at in every scenario. I believe they're more knowledgeable about the small local type streets out of these new planning subdivisions they have.
Do we not need to designate one, with a variable right-of-way, because all our prescriptive roads right now, we may have 30 foot of right-of-way actually, and or 40 or any odd number there, thereof. So I mean, do we need to label one variable with some kind of cross section, or?
We could do that, because most of these cross sections would be given to developers to say, you're putting a new street in your subdivision, how much right of way do you have to give us? And when we get into, let's just say there's a rural part of the county, actual rural where we don't know how much right of way we have there, the fences, or wherever the fences are, and then someone's coming and trying to subdivide, and now we're saying we either need 50 feet or 60 feet, and we're going to go from the center line, and so you're subdividing, so we're trying to make sure we have 30 feet on your side on there. So when we're doing new stuff, that's when we're really using some of these. Now, if someone's going back and we're trying to just sort of, how do we maintain this road, and let's just say it's 30 feet of right of way is really what we think we got on there. Well, then I think that it goes into a maintenance issue. How do we maintain this? But as far as new subdivisions go, I think it's fine to have our 60-foot standard in there, but then we can look into having something that's variable for a local.
I guess my question is, concern, we now, if I remember correctly in our subdivision rules, that if somebody plats on an existing road, that they may have to improve that road at their expense, or may do the pro rata with us to have to improve the road. And the other side's not being developed. Now, what does that cross section look like? Because we were gonna build it to a different standard, at least the road surface. But our bar ditches on the other side, we may not be able to get a section like that out of it, because we might not have the right of way on the other side. So we just going to have to handle that case by case and deal with it.
With the existing roads, it is more difficult, because if we're talking about greenfield development, it's a lot easier. Someone's submitting their plat, we're looking at the dimensions, and we see all that stuff. Now, if we're along an existing county road that has 30, 50, or 60, that's the issue that we run across. Like, are we going to make them improve? Maybe they only have 200 feet of frontage along along this road, is it reasonable to have them improve that 200 feet along an existing county road? And so you'll get a little bit of a different viewpoint on there, but if it's an existing road and it's functioning, typically what we'd have on the plat is really just getting the right of way and not necessarily having them just improve that section, unless there was some other type of county project going on where it makes sense to redo the road at the time.
I feel like that, as we have it now, and I agree with what you're saying because we have a lot of that on one side. I feel like we ought to stay within that 30 foot from the center of the road. That way we will have a little bit of movement we can on a road, you know, if there is an increase in population.
Mm-hmm.
So I would stay with the 30 foot from the center.
But for sort of circling back, and if we need to go back to that question, just to make sure that we got it addressed there. As far as having a local section, so this would be our smallest street type. Are we okay with a 60-foot right-of-way for our local street section, which is rural, with the bar ditch, having 60 feet rather than that being 50 feet? That sound like reasonable size?
I mean, 60 is okay or variable still to me. I mean,
variables,
because
okay.
it's, you know,
I mean,
It
like in
kinda
a
is what it
subdivision where you got 1 acre lots and you have 100 homes in that lot, he's building all new streets. I mean, a 50-foot, if you're using the streets as your ditch, you know, for drainage, you know, a 50-foot right of way would be more than enough. But out on the county roads, I like the 60-foot. That gives us a little room between the road and the fence.
Okay. Well, let us, what we could take a look at is doing something for a brand new subdivision or something like that versus maybe having one that's variable, starting
yeah,
Starting with
particularly if you
60.
look at when we got one that's only developing on one half, you know, one side of the road, and we don't have dedication on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that's why I'm kind of stuck on maybe a variable, because we're gonna have to, that's gonna be happening all the time.
Okay.
I mean, that currently happens all the time. That's typical of what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Because most people are platting along existing roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whether they're prescriptive right of ways or
Whatever's there,
whether you
it's-
have a plat.
yeah.
So, okay. Well, let us take a look into that. I think that gives us enough direction that we can do both on there. Having 50 feet if it's a brand new greenfield subdivision, but having something that's variable, but ideally 60
Right.
in there, on there.
I think we're allowing the 50 now in our current one if they would do concrete curb and gutter streets. But if they don't, it's 60 foot, I think is the way it currently reads.
Our very last question on there was about sidewalks, and we were wanting to, do we want to require sidewalks on our urban local street sections and require a 50-foot right-of-way? So, because what we had in there tentatively was 50-foot for the rural and then 40-foot for the urban. So that's the one with the curb and gutter. And so what the question is, because it sounds like we're adding that 10 feet to basically both of these sections. But for our sidewalks, do we want to have sidewalks on our more suburban style developments that have curb and gutter on there? And this would be for the developer to install.
If they would build them in the sandy land, it'd be okay. In that black land, we can't keep them repaired. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
As long as we're not responsible for the sidewalks.
And if they're gonna put them adjacent to the street or in close proximity, they're probably gonna be in our right of way, and they'd end up being our responsibility,
Yeah.
and we sure don't want that. If we were gonna require them, it'd have to be on private property. We wouldn't want them on ours, so I don't, not at this time. I mean, if we get to a point where, you know, we're, you know, getting somebody to come in and they're gonna put their own site sewer system in so that they can go to smaller lots, you know, maybe we'd require it on that circumstance.
Yeah.
But as long as we're staying 1 acre lots and larger, that's that's a lot of additional cost for not any I don't see it where it gets anywhere. Nobody's gonna walk anywhere on,
They're
out in
gonna
the
walk
country.
on the road anyway.
They're gonna walk in the road anyway. Yeah.
Because and that brings up, you know, the maintenance question is very important, because it's like, how do we maintain these roads, especially when we're getting more suburban style roads with curb and gutter and things like that. One option other counties are considering is whether we have these newer roads in, let's just say we have a subdivision with 60-foot wide lots and things like that. You know, would we require these streets to be private streets? So they would not have to be dedicated to the county for maintenance. They'd be either dedicated to the property owner, the HOAs, or if we had some type of utility district. If it was a very large type of development, there could be a utility district that could be responsible for the streets and the future street maintenance. So on the plat, we would not see those dedicated to the county. We'd see those dedicated to the HOA or to the.
Would you repeat that last part?
On the plat?
On the plats, basically, we're looking at the new ones, and even on the old plat rules and regulations, if it was a gated, we wouldn't take it over if it was closed gated.
Correct.
I believe that's how you have it on your new system.
That is correct. If
Okay,
someone
we-
wanted to do a gated, those would have to be 100% private streets. If there's a gated subdivision, private streets, it's up to the HOA to maintain those streets and moving forward. But we could also take a look at, you know, do we want to expand that to, remember, our lowest level of streets are local streets and collector streets, and having those new ones in a subdivision be dedicated as private streets. It'd be something that we could take a look at to get back to addressing the maintenance issue. When, if we're going to have sidewalks and things like that as part of the street, well, the county's not set up for sidewalk repair and all that stuff. And when we take a look at it, pretty much not really set up for the curb and gutter and the more suburban style streets as well. So if we have those type of subdivisions, do we look at those being more private street subdivisions rather than your regular just county road or larger lot?
I'm not much in favor of requiring them to go to private roads. I mean, we have more problems with private roads now than we can shake a stick at. I mean,
That's a lot of the reason we have not allowed that, because
Yeah.
we have so much trouble with past experience.
I don't think we want sidewalks, and I don't think we want private roads unless, I mean, if somebody's gonna do a gated community and it's gonna be first class for the homeowners association that will maintain it, that's fine, maybe. But we can look at it, but for these others we've had in the past, they're just a nightmare for everybody. People that live out on the roads, us and everybody else, public.
Gotcha.
Our emergency management people can't, I mean, we got some, nobody can get to houses on, some of those are private roads. Nobody maintains them.
So then for number 5, what we'll do is we'll stick to how currently everything's drafted in there, and we won't have a requirement for a sidewalk
All right,
in there.
I agree.
So, okay.
You're-
Just
Hey, we're
wanted to- it
saying,
was
are you
just a-
saying that that's gonna be 50 on the urban, or are you gonna say 60?
It would go, what we could do is, I think based upon what the input I'm hearing is, we'll have 60 foot for the rural local and 50 foot for the urban local. So, because right now those are 50 and 40, but we're adding 10 to each, based upon.
That's what we got
I'm hearing.
now. I mean, if-
Yeah. Because we had reduced that, but what it sounds like, you know, we should just keep it as it is with 50 and 60. So.
I agree.
All right. So let me see. So just had some of those up there. So like I said, basically those were the yellow comments that we had, and we were able to just to group them into those 5 from the engineer. So now we have enough information to go back and with the engineers to finish the draft of the engineering standards manual. Yes.
I was asked a question about this. In fact, I had asked the judge, on all this that you don't have rebar, you know, as far as what streets and what's required underneath yet.
I think we, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, if you want to go back to the street section, we did add
He's
that.
gonna need a microphone.
I've got one.
Oh, you got one? Okay.
Yeah, you can see it calls out in number 3, and then it's also shown graphically.
Number 5 bars.
Yeah, it's difficult to see, but that
then-
row of black dots.
And yeah, the row of black dots right there. And then we say,
Number
There
4
shall be
bars.
number 4 bars.
18-inch centers.
18 centers. So we
No,
added the bars on there.
Good.
And great question. So are there anything else that we need any other questions that you can think of or have thought of maybe related to engineering or subdivision related questions? Because if you think of any, of course, email the judge, and then he'll email us, and then we'll be happy to research that, get with whoever we need to, our engineers, your engineers, to get you the answer that you need on that. So, but like I said, so what we're going to do after today is we're going to work on finalizing these changes, and also in the subregs document, which I think we have in pretty good shape. And then we'll move on to presenting this for you for your consideration and adoption, and then jump on to the Lake Tawakoni comp plan, and then zoning on that would be the next steps. So if there's any other questions?
As soon as we get a finalized copy, I know we're gonna have to have a public hearing or two, but we need to get them out to a couple of our developers. I know they're wanting to look at them, so I haven't sent them anything yet with all the marking up and all of the negotiations, so as soon as we get those clean, we'll send those out and give them a little bit of time to respond to us too.
That sounds like a good plan. We'll get this to you, then we'll go out to the development community,
Yeah.
and then we'll
get
present back
published.
to you if there's any other changes. And
Yeah, we'll need to get it published probably on our webpage and then get it out, let everybody know that it's out there, and then we can start getting some public comment. Since we can't have public meetings, I'd like to really take a little bit extra time probably and make sure the public knows about it and they get a chance to ask questions. I'm already getting calls on it and asking questions about it, so.
We originally scheduled the 22nd for the adoption meeting.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
we're probably
so
going.
we'll work with you on the
Yeah, we're
schedule.
probably going to bump it to October. When we get it back, we'll kind of talk about a timeline and see when we want to kick it out into October to do the final approval. But we certainly want to give the public a chance to give their input.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay?
Dan, I'm sorry, go on.
No, I'm good.
Tell me this, when you do oversee everything as far as the plating, are y'all gonna go on and address even outside the planning and zoning board of Tawakoni in reference to RV parks? Okay,
Yeah, because with the RV parks, whether we're addressing those with a specific use permit or some other higher level of scrutiny that we need to do, that'd be one of the things that we work out.
okay, that'll be there, but are we gonna put anything in our plating, our Hunt County plating? Are we gonna go on and add something in there in reference to RV parks out here that's outside of that zone?
The state law enables us to regulate manufactured home rental communities, which we always run into this issue because the state law clearly defines what a manufactured home is. And a manufactured home is a HUD code. Manufactured home meets the HUD code standards, doesn't meet a state standard, meets the federal standards for housing, which is sort of different than a modular home. Modular home would meet our state standards. But the state enables the counties to regulate manufactured home rental communities. So if it's a manufactured home rental community, yes, we can regulate, and we have standards in the subregs right now where we can do that. The issue is if someone puts an RV park together, it's not a manufactured home rental community. So our hands are sort of tied in our regular platting if they're just putting RVs out on their property. But when we get to the zoning on there, we can control the use of that around the lake. Now, what we don't get is the rest of the county.
Okay, so we won't have anything as far as RVs because outside that 5,000 foot, out here, we're still gonna be no regulations.
Not totally no regulations.
Well,
Well, with
you'd
the
still have your
exception
federal
of sewer and
regulations about
stuff like this.
stuff in the floodplain and stuff like that. So you still have other regulations, but you have more tools in your zoning and around the lake to address, I think, the core of those issues rather than we do just in unincorporated
Okay, thank
parts
you.
of the county.
Any other questions? Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, action item number 9. A resolution and order of the Hunt County Commissioners Court, Hunt County, Texas, amending Hunt County Resolution number 16148, the Texas Floodplain Prevention. Daniel?
It's pretty hot off the presses. The Texas Water Development Board just approved this about 30 minutes before the meeting. Heather Carter in my office has been working with David Jones for 3 or 4 weeks on this project. Basically, what you've got in front of you is the thicker packet, 6 pages long. This amends the floodplain protection ordinance and adds in several things that needed to be added in. And David's going to come talk about those if you all have any questions. But basically, there were several things that were cleaned up in here that were problematic with the state's form that they sent out. The main things that were added, in addition to changing up the appeal board to make it more clear and enforceable, is that there's a setback requirement, a new setback requirement added. This one requires for an engineering study and a no impact certificate, talking about downstream flooding impact, and then the freeboard, addition of freeboard, which is the clearance distance above the 100-year floodplain, right? And so this is whenever a local government is having to go through and make changes to something like this, the process is that the state approves it first through the Texas Water Development Board. Then it comes back for Commissioners Court approval, which can either be today or if you want to take some time to look over this in more detail, or if you have more detailed questions, we can put it off till the next meeting. And then once it's approved by the Commissioners Court, then it goes on to file in the county clerk's office and then goes back to the state. They're the ones that keep up with the paperwork for FEMA flooding responses. So overall, this is something that needed to happen for a while, and it cleaned up a lot of items in the old form, which is based just on the state template. But it didn't have those things, and so we've added those. And so David is here and can answer any more technical questions that you have, or if you have any questions about anything that you've read in here, I can try to answer those, or at least work on getting you the answer.
This doesn't replace it. This is just amending what's there so that we have a plan that's larger than this, got more detail in it? Or will this be the ordinance?
No, this is just an amendment to what already exists. It doesn't completely
We might
replace
need to
it.
get all the commissioners the original resolution so that we can look at it and compare it and make sure
I
that
didn't bring
everybody.
that with me.
Yeah.
I can certainly get that and email it
Yeah,
out. to
yeah, once you
everyone
get it to Amanda and she can circulate it and, cause
Okay.
probably I wanna hear from David, but I know I'd like to have a little time to look at it and probably approve it we're gonna meet next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, so.
Yeah, we can definitely do it then.
We could do it next Tuesday or the following one, either one. Kinda, does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
I wanna hear what David's got to say, but I want some time to look at it. Mr. Jones, he knows it all.
Hello, sir. No. This has arisen out of several of the cases that I'm working on. I know I've spoken with you on a couple of them, so there's been a lot of coordination with the Texas Water Development Board, who is the liaison between us and FEMA, and several things that are pretty serious right now. We've got one case where we've got a location that was built in a flood zone back 1978, and then some more stuff done in 92. They've got some septic issues. The whole thing is in a flood zone, so that creates its own problem. Some of that is addressed by what we'll find here. Some of it's already can be addressed, but this clears it up. There are some things that we've got an investigation that goes back to 2015 that hasn't been cleared up yet, and that's we've got a neighbor who's been harmed by another's development, and he developed without a permit. That's its own issue. So as we've worked with them, we've found that the template that the state gave us didn't have anything about freeboard, didn't have anything about setbacks, didn't have anything about, in their template, about engineering studies being required or a no impact statement. But in the state's quick guide that they put out, they have a lot of this mentioned as things that you should have. They just didn't have it in their template. So as I've been learning as we're going along and reading these things and working with the state, these are items that we really ought to have it as an enforceable document and to help us avoid, well, the way the Texas Water Development Board representative told me, he said, well, if you don't have these things in here, while you can require it, that's usually what causes lawsuits, is because you don't have it in your document. So I wanted to be sure we have it in our document if we're going to require it. The no impact statement is something that a professional engineer puts out and says that, this work to be developed in the flood zone meets these requirements and it will not have a negative impact on upstream, downstream, the ecology, things of that nature. An engineering study basically establishes what is the current topography, what is the base flood elevation, which we get that through FEMA and other studies, and then they have to establish what the freeboard is, which we established that, and generally what we're recommending is a 2-foot freeboard. What that means is that the lowest floor, the bottom floor, has got to be 2 feet above the base flood elevation. The base flood elevation is, if you look at the current topography, and then you look at what is your 100-year flood that you're expecting, then that 100-year flood is your base flood elevation. So you want to be 2 feet above that for your lowest floor. This also impacts things like septic systems that you put in. So you'll know in that one particular case that we're working on where he's below the floodplain, there are some flood-proof septic systems that can be allowed in a case like that where it's, otherwise he'd have to take all of his acreage, bring it all up for the house. He'd have to bring his house up. Look at the problems that would be. And then his septic system, you can't have a septic system in a flood zone. He can create a aerobic field. He can have a tank that's above ground and have check valves and other things, but all of the electronics that operate it have to be above the base flood elevation, and you've got to establish your freeboard for how far above that any electronic controls are. So that's what we're trying to address with these amendments that we're asking y'all to consider and approve.
Any questions? Thank you, David.
You bet.
You did a great job.
Thanks.
Daniel, if you get us the rest of it, and then we'll look at it and then decide when to put it on what agenda.
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, have you checked to see if we've had any comments?
We didn't as of about 10 minutes ago. Let me check real quick.
Before we move on, let's see if we got anything. Again, to the public, if would like to have any, make any statements to the court or direct any comments or questions to the court, you can go to huntcounty.net or questions@huntcounty.net. Public comments at huntcounty.net. And we'll be happy to listen to what comments you might have. Okay, let's move on to number 10. I guess we'll put 9 under old business for next meeting. Number 10, upgrade of approximately 2,925 feet of County Road 1019 from rock to oil sand precinct 1 at county's expense.
Make a motion to approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 11, the upgrade of approximately 2,465 feet of County Road 1048 from dirt to rock road in precinct 1 at county's expense.
Make a motion we approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 12, the upgrade of approximately 725 feet of County Road 1028 from rock to oil sand in precinct 1 at county's expense.
Would make a motion to approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 13, the upgrade of approximately 1,215 feet of Renfro Drive from rock to oil sand, precinct 1 at county's expense.
Make a motion to approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The upgrade of approximately 2,265 feet of County Road 1096 from dirt to rock in precinct 1 at county's expense.
Make a motion to approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item 15, the upgrade of approximately 1,815 feet of County Road 1045 from rock to oil sand precinct 1 at county's expense.
Would make a motion to approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 16, the upgrade of approximately 810 feet of County Road 1046 from rock to oil sand precinct 1 at county's expense.
Would make a motion to approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 17, the upgrade of approximately 1,200 feet of County Road 1125 from rock to oil sand precinct 1 at county's expense.
Make a motion to approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 18, the upgrade of approximately 3,326 feet of County Road 2617 from rock to oil sand precinct 2 at county's expense.
I make a motion we approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 19, the upgrade of approximately 2,640 feet of County Road 2613 from rock to oil sand in precinct 2 at the county's expense.
Make a motion we approve this upgrade on this rock to oil sand.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 20, request to construct electrical power distribution facilities across County Road 2548 in precinct 2.
Make a motion we approve this electrical power distribution under usual stipulations.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 21, the request to construct electrical power distribution facilities across County Road 2720 in precinct 2.
Make a motion we approve this electrical power distribution under usual stipulations.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 22, the request to construct electrical power distribution facilities across County Road 3219 in precinct 3.
Make a motion, we allow this construction with the normal stipulations.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 23, the final plat of Curry Addition in precinct 1.
Would make a motion we approve this plat with the note that it is Herbert Beasley Land Surveyors, not Lane Surveyors.
Second.
I think that one had John Horn's name on the certificate too on that paper copy. They brought the Mylars.
No.
That was not brought to my life. It does. We'll correct that.
Yep, just let them know, so when they print their Mylars, they won't have to redo it. I got a motion and a second
Yes.
on 23. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Let's pay the bills.
Make a motion, we pay the bills.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approval of line item transfers.
Make a motion we approve this line item budget transfers.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approval of budget amendments.
Make a motion we approve the budget amendments.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approval of payroll and personnel.
Make a motion, we approve payroll and personnel.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Still no comments, Daniel? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We'll go into executive session at 11:25. Okay, it's 11:57. We're back in regular session. We're going to take up action item number 1, a resolution extending or modifying the April 28th, 2020 COVID-19 related resolution and social distancing guidelines to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Daniel, will you explain to us?
Yes, there's been 3 changes proposed. The first one is to remove the second sentence in 2C. That sentence reads, "County offices and county employees who are not ill will be allowed to work from home at the discretion of their appointed department heads or the elected official in charge of their offices." So the first change of the 3 would be to remove that sentence. The second change would be to add another sentence that readopts normal hours as they were in place before the courthouse effectively shut down. So employees would come in for normal hours, but for the time being, the public could only enter in by appointment to meet with any of the departments or offices. And the third change would be to specifically reference and adopt and attach the current court order signed by Judge Aiken related to all county buildings with court facilities and to follow the requirements in her order. That would be attached to this COVID-19 emergency declaration as an exhibit, Exhibit A. And then when this goes up online, that'll all be one document so that the public has knowledge about those specific requirements. So
The
if
only
somebody
other
wants,
changes is just changing dates.
that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Do we have anybody that's come online? Since no one has had any public comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 12 o'clock.